We taking charge. We overcoming the odds. You never thought. Look at me now. Look how we raising the bar. We going far. We going far. We going straight to the stars. If you ain't know it by now, you better know who we are. You know we out of your league. You do not want to compete. We overcoming defeat. Look how we running the streets.
All right, guys, welcome back to the EgoLess podcast. I have another incredible guest to wrap up season 1. I've got Kute Blackson. He is the author of the best-selling book, You Are the One. And that brings back so many memories of one of Les Brown's speech where he talks about, I am the one. And I know that brought so much inspiration to my life. So dude, even just hearing the book, I've got it in my cart right now, checking out. Dude, so is that what your goal in life is just to inspire the masses? Or tell me who is Kute Blackson?
That's a complex but simple but complicated question. Who is Kute Blackson? I don't know. And I think the deeper I go, the less I know. And so part of my goal in life is to not know who I am. Because the more we start to know who we are and we hold on to and we get comfortable in a sort of limited label and definition of who we think we are, the less free we are to be open to new possibilities, because we get fixed on this is me, this is me, this is me, this is me. Yet I think what we are is an infinite stream of consciousness, and potential. And so I like to not limit myself with that. But in a more basic sense, I was born in Ghana, West Africa. My father's from Ghana. My mother's Japanese. I grew up in London. I live in the US and Mexico and Los Angeles and Phoenix. So I feel like I'm a soul. I'm a citizen of the world. That's really, I feel like I'm from everywhere and nowhere. And it's a blessing. And my first memories as a young boy was a deep calling to serve people, a deep calling to serve humanity. My first memories in terms of, how I got started doing what I'm doing was I remember being a chubby kid in Ghana, West Africa, seeing a crippled woman crawling on the floor, and she picks up the sand that this man walks on. She wipes it on her face and she stands up, and this man doesn't even know. And the same man whose sand she picks up looks at a woman in a wheelchair a few days later, and he says, why are you in this wheelchair? Stand up. And so I grew up seeing blind people see and deaf people hear. And this man was my father. He built 300 churches in Ghana, West Africa, a very spiritual man, a very deep man, very mystical, spiritual character. I had a huge church in London, 5,000 people. And so age 8, I started speaking in my father's churches. Age 14, I was ordained as a minister, given the mandate to take over his spiritual organization, probably 500,000 followers at the time, congregants in Africa and some in Europe. And that was my path. But from a very young age, I felt, I was obsessed with trying to understand life. I would see some people who were miserable and some people who had everything, right, in London and were miserable. And some people had nothing and seemed to be fulfilled. And none of it I went to one of the most prestigious schools. I got a scholarship there. And none of it made sense to me because these were the sons of presidents and prime ministers and, politicians and billionaires. And a lot of these folks were really unhappy. And so I started to really question from a very young age, like, why are we here? And what's the purpose of life? And is it just to make money, eat, have sex, buy 2 cars, go on vacation, and then die? Surely there has to be more to this whole experience called life than just that. And so what is it? And that became my quest. And I read 800 books or so between 8 to 18. Everything, man. I read the Bible. I read the Quran. I read Eastern mysticism, Western mysticism, the New Age guys, Tony Robbins, Mary. I mean, you name it, I read it. It didn't really matter what it was because I was just hungry for just information in trying to make sense of this. And 14, I was ordained as a minister. And I knew, I always wanted to help people. I always had a strong connection to God, but I knew that my expression or destiny in this lifetime wasn't necessarily through a formalized sort of structure. But look, I didn't have the confidence to tell my father, I'm not really following in your footsteps. I want to inspire people and I want to inspire people in my own way, but not really in your footsteps, And so I became ordained and it didn't feel totally right for me. And it took me 4 years to muster up the courage to tell my father, I love you, but this is not my path. And when I was 18, I had to make a decision. You know, here I am looking at my future. Do I go to university? I chose not to go to university. And I think, you know, every moment of our lives is made of decisions. And if you want to know your future, you just need to look at the decisions you're making right now, because the decisions you're making right now will determine your future. You can predict your future by seeing how you're living your life right now. And you can see the decisions you've made based on, really, you can see the decisions you made based on what you're experiencing in your life today. And so I looked into my future as an 18-year-old boy, and I realized I could take the expected path for my life, the path that the community expected for me. My father, who's a very powerful figure, expected for me. But I looked into my future, age 20, age 30, age 40, age 50, age 60, age 70, and I realized I could be successful by everybody else's standards. But if I didn't have my own integrity, if I didn't have my own truth that was real for me, then I have nothing, you know. And yet I was being guided. Something in my soul was guiding me in a totally different direction. It was the unknown. It was terrifying. It was scary. Sometimes people say, well, when you find your purpose, everything is clear. I felt like my purpose was calling me, but it wasn't clear. And it was a leap of faith. Yet I knew that this direction was right for me. And I didn't know what it would mean. I didn't know where it would lead me, but I felt the truth of it. And so I finally mustered up the courage to tell my father, I love you.
Did that path kind of open up to you almost as like because I had a crossroads, right? I grew up, my dad was a pastor too. So
wow.
wasn't like a big time. We did it differently. He moved to help churches transition when they were transitioning out of different denominations. So we would only be there for, you know, a year and a half to 2 years to help them transition. And that's a tough place to be when you're growing up and your dad is a pastor, because you really do live in a glass house. And you see that, and I mean, I even took a step away from organized religion, never really away from God, because I knew that people mess that up. Where it's like, you look back in the Bible, when, you know, when Jesus came back, he didn't come back the way everybody thought he would. And same thing now, I feel like, is things aren't the way we just make them up to be, to where it's like the church is good, but it's also a hindrance in a lot of people's lives. But when I made the choice I was either, all right, I'm either going to go back home, or I'm going to go into the unknown. The unknown opened up. It was literally like a scene out of a movie, to where it opened up, and I don't know why, but I was like, I have to go this route. Did you kind of have the same thing happen to you?
Yeah, it was a calling. Something called me in a totally different direction. I always tell people, sometimes we have this idea that we have to know where we're going and have to have a plan in order to get there. I believe that you don't actually have to know where you're going in order to get to exactly where you need to be. But there is an intelligence inside of you, a consciousness, an intelligence, a spirit, a soul, whatever label you want to put on it. I personally don't care. But there is something inside of us that is connected to everything, that knows. And so I think part of the freedom for me, and I think part of the freedom we can start accessing in life, is the degree to which we're willing to embrace the unknown. And so I had no idea other than I was being pulled. And I think the more we're able to embrace the unknown, the freer we'll be, and to be willing to live life in a sense of, you take a step and you go in the direction, you take a step, you go into direction. And rather than trying to plan life and strategize life and figure out life up front, because life never really works according to, for the most part, goes according to our plans, is to allow life to lead us, to allow ourselves to be guided, to allow life to show us and reveal itself to us each step of the way. And I think that's it's a different way of living, you know, in a world where we're told to control everything and figure everything out. And we're told that we're the ones that make everything happen. But I actually have found through the process of my life that life is unfolding, and life has been around for millions, if not billions of years. And so there is a greater intelligence of life that I think the more we're willing to get ourselves out of the way, the more we're willing to surrender to, the more we're willing to trust, I believe we will be guided beyond anything we can imagine, you know. And so that's really how I've sought to live my life. And I left everything behind, told my father I'm not taking over. We didn't speak for 2 years. I won a green card in the lottery, literally.
Oh my
and that
God.
was proof. That was proof that when you really follow your truth and your alignment, the universe rises to support you. And that's what I saw every step of the way, and came to the US with 2 suitcases, one, about $800 in my pocket, $800 to $1,000 in my pocket, thereabouts. 1 suitcase full of clothes, 1 suitcase full of books, inspirational books, and showed up and found teachers and mentors and authors. And that began my process as a young man in the US. And it was been a wild journey ever since.
And I want to go into that. I want to go back to really one point that you were just talking about, where it's, where you don't have to know where to go. And it's like life gives you this. I really think that is because I feel like life is a system, right? The sun rises and the sun sets. It's just a perpetual engine that keeps on turning. Now, I believe that we are, supernatural creatures, but it really is, when you do it that way, you really are living by faith, right? When you plant a seed in the ground, you can't necessarily see that when you're watering it, that it is doing something. You have to take it by faith that, hey, I did what it said to do. Now I'm watering it. It's not going to be overnight, but something is coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that life gives us, life doesn't give us what we want. It gives us what we deserve when it comes to taking those actions. Now, so when you got here, I mean, that's one of the best things I think I've heard, is that you had inspirational books in your suitcase. I was homeless, living in my car at 20 years old. I was cleaning Planet Fitness from 10 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the morning. And I didn't know that I deserved greatness or success. And I got a hold of a book, Think and Grow Rich. And one book changed my life. How did books play a part in that journey?
For me, books were huge as a young boy. I read my first self-help book at age 8, a book called Creative Visualization. And as an 8-year-old, I got the sense of, wow, if I could think it and conceive it, and believe it, then maybe I could achieve it, and start programming my subconscious mind. So I read this simple but mind-blowing book for me at age 8, Creative Visualization, by a woman called Shakti Gawain, who's passed away. A pioneer in sort of a new age self-help movement. And then I became obsessed. I would come home from school and do my homework and read books all night for 5-6 hours. Wayne Dyer, Dennis Worley, Les Brown, Jim Rohn, Deepak Chopra, Man Williamson, Dan Millman, Louise Hay, Mark Victor Hansen, Jack Canfield, Tony Robbins. I mean, the list went on to the Eastern mystics, J. Krishnamurti. So I became obsessed, and that was, I didn't go up very wealthy, and so my bedroom was so tiny, and so books were a way to transport myself into a realm of possibilities, and that built the foundation for my life. And that's why 1 suitcase was full of books, and when I came to the US, I brought them with me. It was life-changing, really, really, really life-changing. But I think beyond books, one of the things that really helped me and changed my life was they gave me the courage to be willing to tell the truth to myself. Look, I knew that for me, the ministry was not my path. I knew that, there's no shortage of people that will think they know what's right for you based on your life. And many of the people that think they know what's right for you are miserable themselves. Mm-hmm. And so I think you can't truly live a fulfilling and happy life living someone else's life. You can't really live a fulfilling and happy life being someone that you're not. It takes the courage to be who you are. And so a lot of the books talked about authenticity, talked about being yourself. So I started to really ask myself as a young man, who the hell am I? Who am I really? I know who I've been told to be, and I've got to be nice, got to be this, got to be this. But who am I? What's my truth? I know this is my father's truth, and this is my mother's truth. What's my truth? And I think one of the things that stops us from being truly fulfilled, being truly great, are all the ways we are lying to ourselves. In many ways, we are constantly BSing and lying to ourselves. We stay in relationships that we know we're not really aligned with. We know we might be settling. We know we're no longer in love. It's no longer fulfilling our souls. It's not in our integrity anymore, but we stay in those relationships because of comfort, because of familiarity, because we feel guilty, because, oh my God, I've invested so much into this, or, oh my goodness, if I leave this relationship that I know is not right for my soul, then what will people say? What will people think? What will people around me think? And so we stay in relationships that we know are not truly aligned. We work jobs, that aren't maybe in alignment with our integrity, that don't give us the opportunity to truly express our gift and truly express our purpose. And so I think Happiness is simple. It requires the willingness to tell the truth, feel the truth, live the truth, express the truth. It's not always easy, but it's simple. I was too afraid to tell my father the truth. I was afraid that if I dared to be who I was and shared with my father the truth, this is not my path, that I would be alone, that I would be an outcast, that nobody would love me. And so in so many ways, we are conditioned to compromise our truth. We're conditioned to compromise our integrity. We're conditioned to compromise our deep self and knowing out of fear of, external validation. What will people think? And so I would invite everyone listening to really take an inventory of their lives if you want to be truly, truly great, and ask yourself, what lies am I telling myself? I mean, that now it gets real, What lies am I telling myself? What am I pretending to not know? Because in many ways, we're pretending to not know things. Like we play this game of, I don't know. I'm not sure. Kute, I don't know. I'm not sure. When deep down, there is a part of us that absolutely knows, but sometimes we play this game of confusion because if we kind of stay confused, then we don't have to do anything about it. We don't have to take the move. We don't have to follow our purpose. I don't know what my purpose is. When we know what our purpose is. And so we have to be willing to stop pretending, stop second guessing, stop being confused, and own. Like when we own our truth, we have no one else to blame anymore, And so what lies am I telling myself? What am I pretending to not know? What is it? What are the lies that I'm living? What is it costing me? Because trust me, it's costing us to live the lies, and it's painful. But often what we do is we feel the pain, and because it's painful, we distract ourselves. We social media it away. We eat it away. We shop it away. We work it away. We sex it away. We drink it away, we drug it away, just so we don't have to feel the pain of the dissatisfaction. We don't have to feel the pain of the depression. But I believe that pain is not an enemy. If you feel dissatisfaction or pain in your life, pain is a friend. Pain is a signal. Pain is a signal calling us into a deeper authenticity. It's showing us a part of us or a part of our lives that perhaps is out of alignment, and the pain is giving us is pointing into the direction that something is out of alignment here. We have to pay attention. What we've been programmed to do is have an adversarial relationship with pain. And if we feel pain, we've got to kill it. We've got to get rid of it. We've got to deny it. And all that does is keep us stuck, rather than saying, oh, pain, it's my friend. What is the lesson of this pain? Or maybe I'm not living in integrity here, and that's why it's painful. Maybe I'm not living my truth. Maybe I'm betraying myself in some way. And so I think we have to be willing to sit with the pain, to feel the pain, to marinate in the pain, not wallow in the pain, but to fully acknowledge the pain, to learn the lesson from the pain, and then bring ourselves back into alignment. And then the other thing is I always invite people to really think about, what is the thing that I'm most afraid will happen if I tell the truth? We're often in our minds, one of the things that stops us from truly embracing our greatness is the fear of, if I truly live my truth, then what's going to happen? Maybe I'll fail. Maybe I'll end up homeless. The mind often creates all sorts of negative future fantasies about what might happen that often, 98% of the time, never happens. I'm going to be homeless. I'm going to be broke. I'm going to be this. We create all sorts of negative future fantasies about the worst case scenarios of what we think will happen. That never happen. And so we have to realize most of them never happen. Number two, we have to also be willing to make peace with those worst case scenarios, because if we can make peace with, well, if that did happen, could I deal with it? Most of the time, we can deal with it, and we will deal with it, and we have dealt with it, right? And so if we're able to just make peace with that, I think we can free ourselves up. And so I believe truth, living truth, to me is real spirituality. It's not doing yoga. It's not meditating. Real truth is real prayer. So many of the things we pray to God about, we meditate about, we do yoga about, so many of the things we do spiritual practices for to help us clear would dissolve if we just simply told the truth to ourselves and the truth to other people. And so for me, books gave me the courage to speak the truth and tell the truth and live the truth. And that's been, look, for instance, I realized that if I became who my father wanted me to be, which is taking over his thing and becoming the ideal of what he wanted me to be, sure, he might love me. But I would deep down, I would know that he wasn't really loving me. He was just loving a version of me that I was pretending to be in order to get his love. And the love wouldn't be real. And many times when we're acting to be someone we're not, we know that the love isn't real because we're not being who we are. And so I think that the greatest freedom and the greatest courage is to be who we are. And I think that's part of what we were born to express in this lifetime. When I say be who we are, I'm not talking about the conditioned version of ourselves. I'm talking about the true. To me, true greatness is not to the personality. True greatness is to the soul. True greatness is to the spirit. And the more we're able, I believe, to allow, to get ourselves out of the way and allow our true essence, allow our souls, allow our spirits to express through us, and allow ourselves to be used by life, by God, by the universe, by intelligence, that's when I believe we tap into greatness. So for me, in personal growth, there's this thing of like, activate your personal power. I think when you live just based on your own personality and personal power, you can live a good life. But talk about true greatness, you have to go beyond yourself, your small self, and you have to surrender to the bigger self. The bigger self that is living all things, the bigger self that is living all existence, the bigger self that is the source of creation. And anyone that did anything great, they at some point surrendered their will, surrendered themselves to something bigger than themselves, and they transcended their own human personal limitations. You look at a Jesus, you look at a Bruce Lee, you look at a Gandhi, you look at a Mother Teresa, you look at a Mandela, you look at a Martin Luther King. They were not able to do what they did based on their own little selves. They surrendered, and for me, surrender is a password to freedom. Surrender is a password to greatness. And I think when we truly surrender at that level, where we let go of what we think should be, we let go of how we think our life should look, where we let go of trying to control everything in our lives, then we tap into another level of grace, another level of power, another level of potential. That's when life, the universe, God is able to express through us. That's when magic and miracles happen. That's when things happen through us, when we show up, when we know it, we're not just doing it ourselves. Life is living us. Life is doing it through us. And that's when things happen that we could never plan. I mean, sure, we could write all the goals on a piece of paper, but I think many times we're only able to set goals based on who we think we are. We're only able to set goals based on the limitation of our own mind.
And our perception of reality at the time.
And our perception of reality.
Yeah, goals now is different than goals 10 years ago.
Yeah. So I think what life can do through us is way bigger than anything we can do of ourselves. And when I look at Mandela and Martin Luther King and, Mother Teresa, I mean, that's true greatness. They could never have planned that level of life. But I think all of them, they opened themselves to being lived by something bigger than themselves. That's when they tapped into true magic. That's when miracles happen. And look at what they achieved, in a sense,
When you look at those people, and they were famous at the time, but what they did really did echo into eternity. I don't know if you remember that movie with Russell Crowe. He's a gladiator. So what you do in life will echo into eternity. They are. We look back at those kind of people and we see like, what greatness. But to them at the time, I'm not saying they felt like they were living an average life, but they were just being themselves. And so many times we want the glory and we want the things without, number one, surrendering first. And it might not be as special to us as it is to the rest of the world that we touch.
Yeah. I think none of those people set out to be famous, set out to be successful, set out to make money, set out to have Instagram followers, right? They just showed up and responded to the most authentic need in the moment. It's the ego that wants to do something important. It's the ego that wants to be number one. It's the ego that wants to be known and famous. It's the ego. But all of the people that truly did something great, I think part of why they were able to do something great is because their egos weren't in it. They were in it to truly be of service to humanity. They were in it to truly be of service to, in Mother Teresa's case, the sick people, the poor people. And so because there was no ego, there was nothing in the way. And then life could use them in the way needed. So they weren't waiting to figure out some massively important, gigantic purpose. Yeah, I found this huge purpose, like it's massive, it's so important. No, they just started small. They just started in the most humblest way. Mother Teresa, she started by picking up one person. No grand plan, no business plan, no grand announcement, just picking up one person, because that was the need of the moment. She responded in humility to the need of the moment. And when we're driven by ego, there's less room for life to use us. There's less room for God to move through us, because there's too much of ourselves in the way. There's too much of ourselves in the way, and I think that's what's so beautiful about these people. So that's why I say real greatness is not to you or me or the personality or the ego. Real greatness is to the soul. It is beyond us. And so I think what's important is you don't have to figure out your purpose up front in order to live your purpose. You don't have to even know what your purpose is. I believe the purpose of life is this very moment, is existing right now. The purpose of life is being fully who you are in this moment. The purpose of life is fully celebrating this moment. And the purpose of life is showing up and loving as fully in each moment possible and responding to the need of the moment. And when we respond to the need of the moment, then life reveals what's next to us, and life reveals what's next to us, and life reveals what's next, and life becomes a revelation. And we end up living into our purpose, but many times our purpose won't be what our ego thought, because many times our ego wants what it wants based on our conditioning and based on who we thought we were. And many times the things that we thought we wanted, the goals, dreams, purpose that we set, is based on our conditioning from the past, and a lot of the times it's based on our pain, our trauma, our unmet needs from childhood. Maybe dad wasn't around, and so now we want to show how important I am and how valuable I am, and so now we want to win an Oscar. We want to do what we think we need to do to fulfill some unmet need, but it's not an authentic truth for us, right? It's not an authentic desire. And so I think there's a difference when we just really humbly show up and say, to me, honestly, the deeper I go, the choices become simple. My meditation, my prayer, my desires become simple. My desire more and more, strangely, is universe, God, life, use me. That's really where I come from more now than ever. Use me for the highest good possible in any given moment. And so I think our purpose is something that we get to live moment to moment to moment to moment to moment, because everything is important. Everyone is important. Everything is not like the grocery store person. Mother Teresa inspired me because she said she would see in the eyes of the leper Christ. She would see in the eyes of the most poorest person a manifestation. And so whether it's Christ, for instance, I had this amazing teacher in India. I would go to India a lot. I had several spiritual teachers in India. One of them was a Ghanaian disciple. And I went to be with him because I had romantic ideas of, being great like Gandhi, right? And he built this huge orphanage for the last 50 years at the time. Now it's probably 70 years. But at the time, it's 50 years he'd been serving the underprivileged, poorest kids in the world. I had this romantic idea that I was going to go and save all these children and be the one, right? And I go to his ashram where he has this orphanage. And let me tell you, in June, it was 120 degrees. It was hot. It was hell. I was dying, man. I mean, it was so hard. These are children he finds on the streets. These are children he finds like living in the trash. Difficult cases. They're not socialized, right? And so I'm with these kids. About 2 weeks into it, I'm exhausted. I'm hungry. I'm tired. I'm done taking showers outside. I'm thinking to myself, this whole service
the romance is left.
The service thing is not sexy at all. I'm ready to leave. And I tell him, his name is Dwako G. I tell him, his orphanage was right where it's in Bodh Gaya, where the Bodhi tree is, where the Buddha got enlightened. It's a very spiritual area with a temple. And I said to him, I'm going to go take a break for a few weeks. I'm going to go meditate by the temple, by the Bodhi tree.
Make it sound good too.
I want to sit underneath the Bodhi tree where the Buddha got enlightened and get some spiritual energy, because this thing over here is too hard. And this 80-some-year-old man, look, this is a moment my life changed. He looked at me with the eyes of wisdom. He looked at me with the eyes of compassion. And he said, Kute, it's beautiful that you want to go meditate by the statue of the Buddha. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful statue. But while you're meditating, just make sure that your heart doesn't turn to stone. Because right here in this very simple and humble orphanage are living Buddhas, living Christs, waiting for you to serve and worship them. So you can go meditate by the statue, or you can love and serve these living Buddhas in the form of these orphans, these living Christ in the form of these orphans, and do it for real. It's your choice. When he put it that way, I was like, whoa, he's right, man. You know, like I go sit by a statue, or right here is a manifestation of greatness in the form of these children. Let me sit down and let me humble myself, you know, and let me serve them. And that really taught me a lot about service. You know, service is selfless. Service is going beyond yourself. True leaders are really in it to serve. True leaders are not in it for themselves. They're in it for a bigger cause, their purpose bigger than themselves. So to me, that's what greatness is. Greatness is living for a purpose that is bigger than your own life. And sure, you can live for yourself and you will live a good life. But I think anyone that truly, but you know, at some point you will reach a point of dissatisfaction. You know, you can eat all the food that you love and it's great, but at some point you eat the best food every day, your favorite dish every day, you get dissatisfied. At some point you have the best car in the world. The best car in the world, that's the Lamborghini. At some point you get dissatisfied. I remember when I first bought my first Lamborghini many years ago. I don't talk about it often, but just to prove a point. I bought my first Lamborghini many years ago. And it's so exciting at first. It's like, wow. And then you drive it and it's just another piece of steel, metal. I mean, it's nothing special. And so the real thrill, the real fulfillment is not in what you get, what you take, what you acquire, but really in what you give and the impact that you see it has on the lives of those around you. You know, that's the beauty. That's the legacy. That's what's real. That is greatness.
Man, that's like powerful, dude. You give me chills just like listen to, I mean, what you even said like about Mother Teresa. And then, you know, at that moment, what I like about that moment that he gave you, you know, he gave you the option to choose. It wasn't hey, no, you're not going to do this. Said, hey, you can do this. And I think that power of choice is so powerful because then you don't, you know, you made the choice not to, hey, this isn't right. I'm not going to take over, what my father wants me to. It's like you were always continuously making that choices to where you really truly are whoever it is that you set out to do. I mean, even the Bible says the greatest of you will be a servant. Yeah. And it's so funny because we can know something, but truly knowing it and feeling it's a totally different thing.
It's different, man.
It's totally, you could hear the exact same thing and it hits totally different. Let me at my Lamborghini, the third day in, that's when I was like, man, this is just a regular car.
It's a regular car.
What day in was it for you?
I don't know. I mean, it took me a little more than 3 days because I was enjoying it. But it's a regular car. It ends up getting you to the grocery store in pretty much, the same amount of time. And it just is what it is, and you realize there is more to life. We have to live for more than ourselves.
Well, and I think too is like our ego does get in the way of things, right? Because we never really can own anything. What we got like 110 years here max. I mean, at 110 years old, probably not whipping around in a Lamborghini, but it's like we never truly own anything. We're just renting it and leasing it. And that's one of the things that came to mind is like you look at all these, big buildings with all these people's names on it. Nobody's thinking about that person when they're going by. Like, hey, thanks for donating this building. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
T. Boone Pickens, he just recently died. He was a multi-billionaire. And he said one of the things that helped him most in his life was remembering a poem. And he wanted to know, he said, if you want to know what it's going to be like when you pass away, get a big bucket of water and stick your hand in it and grab as much water as you possibly can with your hand and then pull it out. And however much is left is going to be the most that you could possibly do in life. And you can't grab water. So for us, we can make it a better place, but it's much bigger than ourselves. But like when you say, that whole thing is like, all right, I'm lined up, like use me, you are being then a piece in a much bigger program of life. It's not just, hey, here's here. It's like there is a destiny and a much bigger thing going on. Yeah. And that is true greatness, because, I do believe that there's a life after this one, and we are judged based on how we live this one here. And I'm not going to die and get to go to heaven and God's be like, hey, Jake, congratulations. You got $200 million in the bank account, sit over here with these people, like all the people who had money. It's like, it's not going to matter. It's going to be like, all right, what did you do with that money? What did you do to better humanity?
Yeah. Look, none of that you take with you at the end of your life. No car, no bag, no shoes, no car, nothing. I was in Egypt many years ago. I've been to Egypt several times. I love Egypt tremendously. And I went to the pyramids, where there's huge pyramids, and you say, oh, this is where the pharaohs put all of their stuff, to take their gold, to take to the afterlife. Then I remember going to the Cairo Museum. There's an entire floor dedicated to King Tutankhamun, Pharaoh Tutankhamun. And, gold and chairs and rings and bracelets, an entire floor. And I was walking around going, wow, this stuff is so amazing. Then it hit me, like, his gold is here. His bling is here. All of his stuff is here. And where is he? He's not here. He couldn't take nothing. He couldn't take any of it with him. So we take nothing with us at the end of our lives. We take nothing with us. And so I think that's what's sobering. I think what we have to really make peace with, to truly step into our greatness, is this simple thing. You are going to die. You, me, I know there's a whole thing in biohacking now. Oh, let's live forever. Look, Jesus died, Buddha died, Bruce Lee died, Bob Marley died, Mother Teresa died, the great gurus in India died. You and I, this physical body, it will dissolve. It will expire at some point. It will expire. This is going to happen. Maybe in 120 years, maybe in 200 years, maybe they'll upload our consciousness into another avatar. But the bottom line, this physical thing is going to die. And so the more we can make peace with the fact you're going to die, whether it's today, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's next year, none of us know when that moment will come. The people in 9/11 had no idea when that moment was going to come, and they had no idea that they weren't going to come home that night and look their loved ones in the eyes and say, I love you, say, I'm sorry, say to their father, please forgive me. And so when that moment comes and we all meet our maker, whatever you believe, you can't go to God and say, God, I wasted those 3 years in that job I hated. I wasted that 2 years in that relationship when I was not in love. Can you give me a refund on my God is not going to give any refunds. Once it's gone, it's gone. And so for me, the question is, it's not about whether you're going to die. The question is, how will you truly live in this lifetime while we're here to make the most difference, to make it meaningful, so that when you die, you have no refunds. And if you knew the date and the time of your death, God says, you're going to die on this date, at this time, please get ready, 2030, 2040, whatever it is, would that change how you're living your life? Would it change? And if it would, then I would suggest we start making those changes so that if death came, not only could we have no refunds, but if death came, we could be ready at any moment, because this whole thing is temporary. And sometimes we live like we have forever, and we don't. It's a precious experience we have. It's an amazing opportunity we have to be alive in this body, in this incarnation. It's a blessing. But the more we're willing to I always tell people, face your death, meditate on your death. That's one of the things that really helps me. I think when you're able to meditate and feel your death, I am going to die, then for me, it facilitates a deeper urgency in living life, I don't have time to waste playing small. I don't have time to waste not expressing my gift. I don't have time to waste. And so there's a tremendous freedom in that.
Hearing you saying about that, about like, at the end, when it's like, there's no refunds, at the end, we can't, point fingers at anybody else of why we didn't do it. I mean, especially in today's technology, right? You're accountable for what you hear. And if you have the tools to do it and you don't do anything with it, that's on you. But it's so funny because it's human nature, right? You go back to the garden, and God asks, like, did you eat it? And, you know, Adam's first response was to blame somebody else and to not tell the truth, you know, to put on and say, hey, you know, the woman that you gave me, you know, to put it back on God. And I look back at that one moment because, you know, the way that you do anything is the way that you do everything. And so I look at that one defining moment. It's like, I wonder what life would have been like if you would have just told the truth and accepted responsibility instead of blaming it on somebody else. And the same thing in our lives too. It's like, you know, hey, things do come up. I get it. You know, like life comes at you hard, but it's like when you are really truthful with yourself, it's like, hey, I am the one. Well, then if you are the one, you're the one that's in control of your life.
Yeah. At least we don't always get to control what happens, and we don't always get to control we can't control the pandemic. We can't control the president. We can't control the government. I mean, there's so many things that we can't control. We can't always control the lessons that we learn, but we can always control how we show up and how we respond and how we choose to see everything. For me, I believe that every life is a school, and life is a university for our souls to grow, evolve, and learn. And everyone is our teacher, and everyone is our lesson. And so we're constantly in a classroom learning. And so we may not control the lessons all the time, but we can respond and deal with it. It's how we deal with the lessons that really counts. And so I think, to me, real success is not just whether you achieve the goal, whether you stay married, whether you achieve that thing on the mountaintop. Real success is the evolution of our consciousness, the evolution of our soul. Did I become the most authentic version of myself? Did I become who I really am? Did I really know who I am truly beyond my conditioning? Did I really tap into my own soul, my own essence? Did I become who I really am in my own divinity? You know, and so I think that's the real success in life, the degree to which we learn the lessons and evolve and become who we really are, not just, I stayed married in a relationship for 30 years and I was miserable. And so I think it's a different definition of success that we get to play with, you know? And so for me, true real greatness is being who you truly are, living that and giving your gifts.
No, I love that. Let me ask you one question in closing. So I know in the kind of the spiritual community, what I like about you is I feel like you're a hybrid. And I'm going to start following your stuff a lot more because it's a practical and a spiritual kind of, there's a lot together.
There has to be the practical. If it's just woo-woo spirituality, you know, we're human beings in a body.
Yeah.
Right?
We still got to do, I call it I say it's the natural and the supernatural coming together to make a explosive force. You know, in those spiritual communities though is, you know, enlightenment ceremonies where people are traveling to the Amazon, to do, I'm trying to think of the word for it. It's called like ayahuasca, but it's like a hallucinogenic drug, that takes you out of your ego, basically.
Ego.
And I've heard a lot of people talk, I've never done it. But I've heard a lot of people talk about like Joe Rogan and a lot of these people who are kind of pushing this new age oneness. Is that something that you have researched or you know about or even promote?
Yeah, I mean, if there's specific questions you have about it, I mean, oneness is not a Christian thing, a New Age thing, a Buddhist thing, a Islamic thing. Oneness.
But my question is, does it work?
Does what work? Does a ceremony work?
Because I mean, I even look at like Dan Bilzerian. He even said that he
okay, that's a whole different, bro. That's a whole different case. Dan Bilzerian is puffing his ego based on money, fame, sex, rock and roll, drugs. And I'm not saying it may not have provided a nice experience, but I wouldn't consider Dan Bilzerian an authentic or fair.
No, I'm meaning more. This is just a trend. I'm saying.
No. I want to address it though, because I think it's important, right? I don't think Dan Bilzerian is an authentic expression of sort of the use of, let's say, psilocybin, mushrooms, ayahuasca, or what have you. And so, look, I will say that in ancient cultures, ancient indigenous cultures all around the world, this is undeniable. In Africa, in South America, Latin America, in Siberia, I mean, Egypt, there is an indigenous tradition of, nature and understanding of the power of plants with right relationship in the jungle. There's a right relationship is the key.
Intention.
Where intention, there were shamans, there were medicine men, there were healers, herbalists that understood the connection to the divine, to the tradition, and the connection to nature. And these plants were used in a ceremonial, medicinal way, right? Medicinal way with right relationship to facilitate true healing, inside of an individual through some ceremony, prayer, and ritual that was properly facilitated. And so I don't have any issue with that, because to me, that's part of an ancient lineage of tradition that is beyond books and conditioning and anything. The challenge that you might be speaking to a little bit is a concern when the ego gets hold of some of these things and then starts doing ayahuasca like a weekend, rave, or in a non-sacred context so casually without the sacred intention, where it loses the sacredness, it loses the intentionality, it loses the true purpose. And then some people also sometimes start doing it in a addictive way, right? Versus a true intentional way. And so I don't think in and of itself is the issue. It's really the intentionality and having the right relationship with it, the right context with it, done ceremonially. But I believe that some of these things, whether it's an ayahuasca or whatever plant medicine, done properly, are true medicine. And if you really do them, they don't need to be done like every weekend. Once in a life, once in every 5 years, it can be enough to create an opening and a loosening of one's egoic sort of grip for a moment, so that maybe you can experience something. But then that alone, I believe, is not enough, because a lot of people, I can't speak to Dan Bilzerian because I don't know him, but a lot of people do ayahuasca and they're still the same jerks that they were before when they come back. Because here's what happens. You have this opening, right, for a moment. Like when people drink alcohol, you have an opening, you get kind of loosened for yourself. So that's a whole other plant medicine, right? And so, but when someone does a plant medicine, you have an opening for a moment, then you're in another altered state of consciousness. Then you come back, then you come out of that altered state of consciousness, then you come back to 3D regular existence. And then you see the key is the real work is not in the heightened state. The real work is every day. The real work is the daily discipline and practice of dealing with your shit. The easy thing is to do ayahuasca once in a while. The easy thing is to do that's the easy thing. The hard thing is every day facing your shit, dealing with the truth, dealing with your lies. The hard thing is stop cheating on your freaking girlfriend. The harder thing is, living in alignment, telling the truth, keeping your promises, being in alignment, forgiving your father, dealing with your wounds when you were a child in a daily manner. So for me, real spirituality is not some far off romantic thing on a mountaintop. Real spirituality, if it's real, has to be lived in the real every day, where we bring heaven on earth and we integrate it and embody and live it. To me, real spirituality is being on time. Real spirituality is doing what you say. Real spirituality is not screwing someone over. Real spirituality is, showing up for your kid every moment. Real spirituality is loving your wife and girlfriend. And so it has to be lived every day, embodied and lived every day. But then the work of the healing, we're talking about the medicine part, has to be done daily. And then maybe plant medicine creates an opening, but then you have to integrate it and live it in your life, and then live it in your life. That's the key.
That is a mic drop moment. And I'll end it on this. The reason I had it state, because there's so many times when we put negative stigmas on anything, on anything. And I always hated when people said that, well, when they do, hallucinogens or things like that they felt closer to God. And I was like, no, that's not a possibility. You can't just take something that makes you closer to God. But I think what they really mean is it takes them farther away from themselves, which is closer to God.
It takes them out of their ego, because when they're stuck in their ego, that is the perceived separation from the divine, And so what some of these things might do is loosen that grip for a moment so that you can transcend. the limited grip of the self. So in a sense, it doesn't take you closer or less close, because we can't not be close, because God is the very foundation of existence, you know? So, but the perception of being separate from God, the filter of the ego, is what loosens.
Man, dude, I love it. Cool, man, dude. I'm rarely ever speechless, and dude, that whole time. So that was inspirational. Where can people find more about you? I'm gonna put your links in the bio.
Awesome.
In the book.
Couple of places, you know, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, dropping inspiration daily. My main website is kuteblackson.com. If people feel inspired to go to the next level, twice a year, I do very deep dive, transformational, no hallucinogenics, by the way, but deep dive transformational journeys where I really help people go to the next level. So if you feel like you're ready for breakthroughs and, you know, going to the next level in your life, you can go to www.boundlessblissbali.com, 12 days in Bali with me and leaders and visionaries. And there's also a free gift I want to give everyone. You can go to www.activatingabundanceonline.com. It's a free 3-part video series. Just enter your name and your email. You're going to get 4 videos from me that will inspire you on the journey.
Man, dude, I love it. You are, you really have done that. You said if you set yourself on fire, the whole world will come watch you burn. And dude, I see it. So I look forward to, I'm gonna read your books, following you, and figure out a way to be your friend.
Great to be here.
Awesome. All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
God bless. Take care.